So let me set up the conversation. We're talking about church planting, connected with the university setting, campus ministry. Can you do both? Can you reach a normal neighborhood, a normal population, plus campus? Can you do it at the same time? What should be the priority? Is it a 50-50 thing? Is it a 70-30 thing? And so yeah, Reinhard, what's your perspective or answer to that question?
Yeah, again, it's a great question. I'd love to hear the answers of everyone on the call and get some of that input. I don't have the answer, but maybe some positives from being able to do both. One is that the energy that students bring to a church plant is just phenomenal. There's something about wanting to be involved and wanting to meet up I mean, Doug, Paul, you just mentioned it, the willingness to engage and to spend time with one another. Students just have that working people don't. And so you get a lot of mileage out of students, both in time spent with them and actually also energy spent at serving at the church. And so that's really one positive that we got. The other downside sometimes with student ministry is just the transient nature, how quickly students come in and go out. And so it's exactly because of that why it's so good to have the other side, to have families or young professionals or single people within the church that kind of anchors the church and have places where we can invite the people to and bring resources to the table. And so we're very young, and so I've got no idea what the split should be or the priority should be, but I'm just thankful that we're in a space where we can have both and just see how it's good for how every group needs one another. So the one thing that I have become absolutely convinced of, even though we've got student specific ministries, homogeneous, we've got student socials and student Bible studies, when it comes to the structures of the church and our missional communities, that's 100% intergenerational. And the goal that has just been for the church, even though, in the beginning, people didn't know that or didn't know what to expect. So there was some pushback. No, we should have it just for this group and this group and that group. But having it intergenerational has been absolutely phenomenal for both sides, both, people maybe getting a little bit stagnant with their families, getting into a missional mindset again, and students just being discipled in a very organic way. What does it look like for fathers and mothers to be with their kids and with babies and the chaos of life? And so that's been, there's a lot of things that I probably would change. I wouldn't change that. That for me is the gold of missional communities.
That's awesome. Great comments. Loved all of those. And I think we already said this, Paul. I like how Reinhard said it. The younger ones obviously are going to bring more energy. They've got more energy. They're going to bring more energy. Okay. But they lack the wisdom. They lack the life experience. They don't know how to parent. There's a lot of things they don't know. And so that's the beauty of it. Is it going to be challenging and messy at times? Of course. It's what family is. But it's what discipleship should be. Like, I talk to so many churches that try to clean up the mess and avoid the mess, and we actually need to invite the mess.
Yes.
It's in the challenges, it's in the messiness of it all where the best learning happens, the best growth happens, I believe. And so don't wish it away. We're trying to say, is it 70% student, 30% older? Is it 60-40, 50-50? Who cares? Like, live in the tension, do your best week to week, love the people God set in front of you, whether they're on the campus or off the campus.
Yes.
And let God grow the relationships and shape people through the relationships. Because Reinhard said it, the intergenerational nature, yeah, powerful.
Mm.
It's transformative. And so, yeah, I'd say you can do both. Like we said, you need to do both, and you need to think long term. Imagine if you didn't do both, the problems you're going to have 3 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, so my original vision was to sort of work with the students, and as you said, they stay on, they get married, and so out of that grows a fully fledged intergenerational church. And then when we didn't get student ministry going initially beginning of last year, and it was slow, and we were struggling ourselves in terms of going somewhere on a Sunday, we said, well, let's start meeting here. And so we got 3 or 4 couples that way, older couples. But that wasn't the original plan. But we've got this group, and now the students have been coming to that too. So it's a very intergenerational space on a Sunday morning. We were chatting to the older folks. So we meet on a Thursday night with the older folk. Because again, we've got the whole transport issue problem. It's massive distances. And we've talked about one of our focuses being students, and the general consensus, well, we're not really interested in that. And we've done the young people thing or whatever. But now we've also found they're all saying, actually, it's a bit too far to drive on a Thursday night. And so that's starting to peter out. So it's been a wrestle as to figure out how do you connect more with people outside of the student context. Our major sort of draw card has been more Sunday morning, but we haven't really gathered a lot of people that way. And it's been a mini service. So yeah, it's still a wrestle for me as to how to connect more with people on the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're in the early days, man. You haven't been there long.
Yeah, it's 15 months, eh? Yeah.
That's not long at all. So don't judge anything based on your current relational dynamics. That's going to change as you're there longer. You're going to know more people. You're going to meet more neighbors. You're going to have more opportunities for other creative opportunities. That's going to grow and deepen over time. So you haven't been there very long. So the other thing that's going to change is that your students are going to gain more confidence and be able to take more responsibility, which is also going to free you two up to be able to do other types of things, because you won't need to lead everything on the campus.
Yes.
You're going to have some students that are capable of doing some of those things. So that's going to change too. So just give it some time. Again, things are gonna deepen, things are gonna strengthen, things are gonna grow if you keep making good relational investments, which I think you're doing. So
yeah, I think we are, and we are beyond just the student work too, which is true. I mean, we are connecting with the Zanes and the Brians, and
but 15 months, man, that's early days. So give yourself plenty of grace. And so, Brian, you got any comments about these topics? You don't have to, but I want to give you a chance to.
No, I'm most interested in what Reinhard was saying about the intergenerational thing, because I would think that's one of your key opportunities. I guess it depends on your context, but you want to be able to kind of adopt those students in and bring them into family. So just reflecting on what you guys were saying there, that really rings for me. I'm just thinking, do you guys know Heritage Baptist they're now in Melville? Mike Rogers is pastoring there. I don't know how active their their student ministry is, but they planted a church close to the campus. They originally were actually close to Wits, and now they're close to UJ, and they serve both. Might be interesting to reach out to them and just get their experiences as well. One thing I know they do is they run a bus from the campus to the church on a Sunday. I don't know what else they do.
Yeah, that's our biggest struggle. I mean, we go and fetch some students outside White River. I didn't take 4x4 with me. I take the Land Rover, because you need to get there sometimes in a Land Rover. I mean, on a Sunday, we do 100 kilometers fetching students.
Wow.
So the distances are very different here.
Yeah. What campuses are they on, Paul?
It's University of Mpumalanga outside Nelspruit.
Okay.
Is it possible for you sometimes to organize something there instead of bringing them all the way back?
Well, you see, so on the campus, there are residences which have about 1,000 students, and the other 3,500, 4,000 students are scattered all over the place. So we are hoping that if we get onto campus, that we might be able to move our Sunday services to campus, which will be a little easier to connect other students with, and not have to drive that much.
And maybe not all the time.
Yes.
But what if you did on campus twice a month and your current location twice a month?
Yes, I hope. Yes.
I'm just trying to think creatively about how to, again, care for different types of relationships in different spaces.
Yes.
We get locked in. It's interesting, funny humans. We get locked into certain boxes, and it prevents us from thinking creatively and innovatively.
Yes.
Like, well, why do we have to meet at the same place every time? Or like,
yes.
Let's go to where the relationships are. Let's be creative and innovative in figuring out how to care for the people God has given us to shepherd, whether they're Christian or non-Christian.
Yes.
So anyway, it sounds like you need some, do some innovative thinking and, come up with some of those types of solutions. Well, hey, great conversation. We can come back to that in the future. I'm sure we will be, because that's your, that's the space you guys are functioning in. But I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at that document that I've sent multiple times now. We've had a few false starts, but it's basically just describing some different aspects of a healthy discipleship environment. And so wanted to hear your thoughts, observations, questions about, which things you really resonate with, and maybe some other things you're kind of like, say more about that. So if you're not remembering, you can pull it back up. There's 10 principles or 10 categories to consider. So which of those for you guys, maybe I'll say it like this, which of those really resonated first of all? Pick 3, 4, 5 of those and make a comment.
Todd, maybe one with a question for me. Point 6. I think it's something about frequent and long term. I loved it, and it makes so much sense. But I had a question on that, especially with regards to, so we've got our missional communities and sharing life together, and then you've got your DNA groups. And part of the thing is actually to spend a lot of time with one another, and it's going to take time to invest and get to know one another. So how do you overcome the fact that as you grow and more people gets added, especially in the beginning of a church plant, you multiply quicker than, let's say, later with your DNA groups. And it's difficult for people to immediately kind of buy into that new group and into that model of sharing and maturing. What would be some of the encouragement that you would give, these early DNA groups to continue to invest in one another, even though we're multiplying quicker? What would be some of those principles? Because it's an absolute truth, and that's part of the health. But in the beginning, as you multiply, it's kind of a challenge.
Great question. So with the frequent and the long term, again, it's an obvious thing that long term discipleship's a process. Even mission, many times with non-Christians, is a long-term process. But as we've said many times before on these calls, the frequency piece is so critical. Because if you're not getting enough time spent together, you're not going to have depth of relationship. Doesn't matter if it's Christian to Christian or Christian to non-Christian. There's just no substitute for frequency and quality time, quality and quantity of time spent together. So what do you do? As you're multiplying, that's one of those tension. That's one of those tensions you have to live in, because if you're growing and multiplying, it means starting over in some ways. So one thing it's important to do is to talk about it with your people. To say, if we're going to be growing, multiplying, influencing more people, there is a cost to it. You do, but then here's probably the point I want to connect to it. Once you build a certain quality or depth of relationship with a person or a group, you don't ever lose that. So say you and I are in DNA together. We have this deep, great experience together for a year. Okay? But then we multiply. We don't lose that. I'm still that friend with you. I'm still that kind of brother with you. I'm just relating with some other people now, in addition to my relationship with you. Does that make sense? I think sometimes when people think about multiplication, it's like, okay, we leave this to start this, and we say goodbye forever.
That's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I grew up in a small hometown, okay, in the middle of America. I had some deep, long-term relationships there. I moved away. I haven't lived in that place for 30 years. What happens when I go back there? I can restart some of those relationships with some of those old friends like that.
So good.
Because we've got that previous history. We've got that previous relationship. We know each other. We trust each other. We have loved each other. I moved away for 30 years. That didn't change that. That changed the frequency that we see each other, but that didn't change my love for them, their love for me.
That's good.
So was there a cost to me moving to the other side of the country? Absolutely. But there's still this beautiful connection based on our previous history.
That's good.
Paul, you moved out of Cape Town. Lot of long-term relationships. Did you just say, hey, see you in heaven?
No.
That'd be silly.
I mean, it was amazing. I was back at the beginning of March, and it was like picking up as though I'd seen them yesterday.
Exactly.
It made me realize how much I left behind in a way. It was quite painful in a sense.
Yeah. There's a
because
cost.
The cost of moving here has been big, but those relationships haven't gone away.
They haven't gone away. They never will go away. There's a love and a connection there because of the depth of relationship you had previously.
Yes.
That's what we have to help our people understand. You go deep with your DNA, with your missional community after 1 year, like that's forever. That's forever. You could multiply 3 more times. You'll still go back to your original sometimes and have a meal, show up to a birthday party, help them with a house project, take them a meal when they have their next baby. That's part of the beauty of it. And I think it really reinforces what we're doing here. It's like, wow, you can establish these deep, loving relationships with people that are literally forever, eternal. You will experience them in different ways as people move, get different jobs, get married, start having kids. They're going to change, but they're not going to go away. That's what we have to help our people understand. That even more, I believe, reinforces, man, let's make every week count. Every time we meet as a DNA, let's make it count. Every time we have a family meal night with our missional community, let's make it count. Let's love each other well. Let's make, literally, that's what we're saying here. Let's make an eternal investment in each other that's not going away ever. So, anyway,
So good.
good one.
Thanks.
Thanks for bringing that up. Other ones. Any comment? Something that stuck out to you, or?
I've long been convinced, having also read Jeff van der Stel's book, of the necessity of gospel saturation and gospel fluency, which is, I don't think, something that most Christians know very well. The idea of Jesus on our lips and him in real daily life,
Good.
shaping us. I think it is as crucial for our own growth as disciples as it is for our engagement with the non-Christian. The better we are with each other with that, the more effectively we can reach non-Christians, because then it's the gospel in everyday life. I still don't quite know how one trains that, to be honest with you, and because that's as gospel fluency. The book makes the point, it's a new language in a way, and you don't learn that overnight. But yeah, I'm absolutely convinced of that.
Well, absolutely, it's a long-term process, and it requires what we talk about all the time: consistent teaching, consistent modeling, consistent experience. But the modeling and the experience take time, because you can't create effective. It doesn't happen in a classroom. It happens out on the campus over a meal. It happens when your Land Rover gets a flat tire, Paul.
Yeah, well, 3.
Flat tire, or runs out of gas, or you're having to pay for gas and you're complaining about the cost of gas, petrol.
Yeah.
It's in all those moments. You're driving home and it's dusty and people are hot and tired. And you're reminding each other of the gospel and all you have to be thankful for and the good news of what Jesus has provided. It's yes. That. But you do control what you teach and what you talk about on a consistent basis. So you can be very gospel speaking, gospel centered in your preaching and teaching.
Yeah.
even when it's not in the formal times. For sure, it needs to happen in the formal times, but also in the informal times. Before a meal, sitting down for a burger with a group of students. 60 seconds before you enjoy that burger, you speak some gospel. You remind of the gospel. You remind of all that Jesus has done. You remind that you're here in this moment because Jesus has saved you, redeemed you, provided this situation that you now get to enjoy with each other as brothers and sisters over yummy food, a yummy burger that he's provided. 60 seconds, gospel speaking before the burger.
Yeah.
So our prayers, our conversation before meals matter. For a lot of people, it's just a tradition. It's just a formality. Shouldn't be. It should be one more point, one more time in our day, one more moment in our relationships that are gospel focused. So don't let prayer before a meal, don't let prayer before a service, don't let prayer before a wedding, don't let prayer at any time just become a tradition of formality. Take advantage every single time to make it a gospel proclaiming moment.
Can I ask a follow-up question? And Todd, I might have asked this before, and you might have answered it before, and so you have to just keep repeating yourself. But
Okay.
so in the context of wanting to be gospel saturated, so you've got here in point 3, you've got the role of the missional community leader is important as a primary discipler. You've got further down talking about formal learning environment. Where do you plug in? There's been a question in my mind for a while now. Amongst all the things that a missional community is doing, where do you plug in the opportunities to go deep, to sit down 5, 6, 7 of you and wrestle over a text or work through a catechism or really drive home the truths that we stand on? Where does that fit in? Because it seems to me our danger might be like a family meal night. I don't want to turn it into a Bible study, so we don't. Missional, your DNAs are very personally specific, and you can work through content, but you don't want to override the whole event with working through content. That's not what it's there for. You want to base your discussion in content. So where do you plug in opportunities to really go deep and teach?
I like what you said. I like how you asked it. I would just say, I think you're leaning too far. You said on your family meal nights, you don't want it to become a Bible study. Why not? Sometimes.
Right.
If your group needs some catechism, some good catechism, do it sometimes at a meal night. I usually tell groups, though, I think this just helps. Let's just say a third of the time. Because there's lots of other things we're trying to accomplish. But if you want that super deep, super focused, doctrinal study or whatever discussion, great. I love it. I agree with it. We need it. But a third of the time, in your family meal nights for your missional community. DNA, same thing. I have no problem with the DNA a third of the time being hard doctrine. The problem is historically, we've tried to do it most of the time. And then it's not connected with our stories. It's not connected with everyday life. It's not connected with any kind of action step for daily life. It's purely formal, head. Historically, that's been our problem. So it's not shift completely away from it. The principle is to properly proportion it. We need it sometimes. Properly proportioned. You know? My kids, they were asking, my kids last night were asking for ice cream. Again. I think that they find a way to ask for ice cream every night. Okay? So my kids love ice cream. So I love ice cream. Properly proportioned. Is it healthy every night? No. Is it wise to eat ice cream every night? I don't think so. Sometimes, absolutely. Properly proportioned, absolutely. Same thing here. All good things need to be properly settled, properly proportioned. Does that make sense? So Brian, a third of the time as a reference point. DNA.
I guess I would want to see it intentional rather than just accidental ad hoc.
Good.
It's part of our shepherding responsibility.
Intentionalize it a third of the time. Tell your DNA, hey guys, I think we need these elements regularly in our DNA. We need story, we need prayer, we need gospel and daily life. We need all that, and we need some good foundational doctrine. So let's be aware of that. Let's properly plan that. Same thing, tell your missional community. Hey, everybody, trying to accomplish these things over the course of a month, 2 months. Let's work together to properly proportion these things. Not too much of any one thing. They're all good things. They're all necessary things, properly proportioned.
The other thing is, if you're just teaching doctrine without its implications for daily life, without the experience of it, then you're not shepherding. You may be lecturing, but you're not shepherding.
I know. That's been the problem for the evangelical church for the last 50 years. Around the world. I hear this from churches all over the world every week. It started as a good thing, but it became excessive. I sound like a heretic now. Where Bible study became excessive. But it's to your point, Brian, if the Bible isn't properly, it's education. Good education is not just here. We always say good education is head, heart, hands. A third of the time. Head, a third, heart, a third, hands, a third. Head, heart, hands. So it's not anti-Bible, it's just the Bible being properly stewarded, properly used, influencing the head, third of the time, influencing the heart, daily life, influencing the hands. How are we going to do that, everybody, this week? How are we going to apply this at work, in our marriages, in our parenting, in our finances? Head, heart, hands. What other elements? we've already kind of talked about that modeling element, right? But man, I just want to comment and say, because you, Paul, you made a comment a little bit ago. You said, like, how do we get this stuff into people? Good habits, good gospel. A lot of it can't get there any other way than modeling.
Which is time.
Time and the proper context.
Hmm.
They need to see you and see Venetius and see your wives and see the more mature ones. Model it. As you stop at a petrol station and see how you interact with the workers there. Do you speak grace? Are you generous? Are you loving? Do you have the posture of a servant?
That's good.
At a meal,
Mm.
are you quick to help clean up? Are you quick to help put the dishes away?
Mm.
Are you quick to ask? Does anybody need anything? Need another drink? Need more water? Need a second helping?
Mm.
Servant posture, servant modeling. Do they see it at a meal, at the campus, at the petrol station, at the market? Modeling, modeling, modeling. So you can see we can model all the time, right? All these places, but in your DNA group, at a family meal night with your missional community, at the birthday party, at volleyball, at the park.
Mm.
Modeling, and another element, experience, experiential. So it's not just you modeling, it's drawing you, it's you pulling them into the same experience. Hey, could you help me set up the volleyball net? We're trying to get this game going. Hey, could the two of you help? Could the two of you be a servant in this moment? You're not saying it like that, but that's what you're doing.
Mm.
Hey, could you guys help set up? Could you guys help prepare the meal? Hey, could you guys bring some food? Hey, could you guys help clean up? Hey, could you guys stay after and do that? You're pulling them in, drawing them into the experience. So it's you modeling at the same time you're pulling them into the experience. Experience of serving, sacrificing, demonstrating hospitality, generosity, even in conversation. You're at a park. Paul, you're talking with one of the students. Hey, come over and join us. Come over and join our conversation. You pull them into the conversation. They begin to listen at the questions you're asking. You ask them a question. Drawing them into these relational moments, drawing them into these relational situations. It's experiential. Some of the best growth is going to come through the experience. So some of it comes through gospel speaking, some of it comes through proper modeling, some of it comes through the experience, the experiential. And then another element on our list of 10 is the missional, the mission. Part of the beauty of mission is that all of this is built in. When you go on mission, there's going to be opportunities to speak and to teach. There's going to be opportunities to model. There's going to be opportunities for experience. That's why Jesus spent so much time on mission. All of these elements are built into it naturally. You go on mission, it's guaranteed to be fruitful. It's guaranteed every time. Anytime you create a missional environment, meal with non-Christians, party with non-Christians, volleyball with non-Christians, some work project with non-Christians, it's guaranteed every single time to provide some discipleship, some transformation. It's guaranteed. Which is why I believe, again, Jesus spent a majority of his time with the disciples on mission, in missional environments. Thoughts about that? Agree, disagree?
For us, that's been the most challenging but best part of it. Oftentimes we will first want to become scholars before we go on mission, but it's interesting to see, once we do go on mission, it actually puts us at many different crossroads, many different crises, questions being asked. And it's actually in those environments then that we actually get the opportunity to give gospel teaching. But it's on mission that we actually become more family oriented, that we serve one another, that we serve others, because it's just so hard and it's so tough. But for the longest time, I was part of the environment thinking that we first have to focus on us as a family, and once we're sorted, we'll focus on the world. And it never happens like this. and we see,
it's the other,
it flipped.
It's
It's
the other way.
completely the other way. But the first way is a lot more comfortable. And so it's so much easier to say, hey, let's keep it for us and let's just talk about this doctrine and this Bible. And
I'm glad you said
we'll
that.
figure the other stuff out later. Yeah. And it's interesting, even Jesus's disciples, as they were going through the towns and meeting people, how many different interesting conversations came up, and the disciples were asking Jesus about these things, like, okay, we're doing, but why this and why that, and cast down fire and burn these guys. And so it's for us, it's been immensely good and challenging at the same time. It's and personally for me as the leader, probably your people won't be more missional than you. And so even for myself, it was super comfortable being the one preaching and teaching. And even preaching the message that you guys need to be on mission. But to really be able to live it, man, it's been one of the most challenging seasons of my life. Maybe because it's not my natural gifting, but it's been super good as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Loved what you said there. Historically, again, one of our weaknesses as evangelical churches, or however you label yourself, but you know what I mean, is bad educational thinking. Teach first. Think we have it all in order, and then try to go do it, and actually realize we don't. We don't know what we're doing. We talked about it a lot, but because we hadn't experienced it, we actually don't know how to do it well. Versus flipping it, like you just said, Reinhard. Let's get going. Let's go do it as Jesus did. Let's take them on the road. And then we will talk along the way about what we need to talk about. Then we will teach along the way in context of real life. Jesus did not load the disciples up with a bunch of information. In Luke 5, he calls them to come and follow him, to come and fish for men with him. Luke 5, and then immediately they go. No education, no information. He did not tell them how they were going to do it. He did not give them a single teaching from what we see in Luke 5. He called them. He cast vision for them. He said, we're going to do it together, guys. And then they take off for the first village. And then that's what we see, village after village after village. And then he integrated some teaching. Because they had questions. Because they saw things. Because they were like, wow, this is a hard situation. What do we do here? What do we do with this demon-possessed person? Never seen one of those before. Oh man, Jesus, it seems like in a lot of these situations, you pray. What's that about, Jesus? What's this prayer thing you're doing? Teach us to pray now, Jesus. Because of what we've seen. Not teach us to pray, now let's go do something. Flipped. You guys get it? Do you agree? I hope.
Yeah, I often say we read Ephesians chapter 4, verse 11, 13, and 12 in that order. But it's actually 11, 12, 13. So it's the gifts, the apostle, the 5 gifts, which equip the saints for the works of service, and then the body will become mature. We often go, no, we've got to wait for the body is mature, and then we'll send them out on to get going with the works of service. And it's the other way around. It's as we do those works of service that we become mature.
Yeah. Luke 5, I hope, yeah, go back and Luke, sit in Luke 5 for a little bit. Seriously. Very clear. I believe. The calling, the vision casting, and then Jesus knows these guys are not going to get it without doing it. They're not going to get it without experiencing it. They're not going to get it without seeing it and feeling it. They're not going to get it. So let's go. Let's go. And they go village to village. And then he fills in the gaps. Then he integrates the teaching. Then he answers their questions. Because they've got real questions, not hypothetical questions. They've got real people in front of them, not hypothetical people. What do you do with demons, Jesus? It's right here, right now. It's not theory. It's not hypothetical. It's real, right here, right now. What do we do? How do we do this? How do we love? How do we serve? How do we speak? How do we heal? How do we feed? Got 5,000 people here, Jesus. How do we feed them? How do we feed them? It's real. It's not hypothetical. It's not theory. It's not next week. Right now, what do we do? And Jesus graciously, patiently teaches, answers their questions, fills in the blanks. Hopefully you guys, you guys are seeing, feeling like the work we need to do to redefine discipleship. When I first wrote this document, like 12 or 13 years ago, it was actually called Redefining Discipleship. Because there's a lot of redefining that needs to happen to all of these points. I think in most of these points, the church, unfortunately, has got it flipped to the wrong side. We got to get it back. We've got to get these things back in their proper priority, in their proper perspective, in their proper, again, experience. Because so much discipleship has become just head. Hypothetical, theoretical, formal, traditional. And it's not getting to people's hearts, and it's not getting worked out with people's hands. So, hey, love this conversation. We could talk for hours, literally. Such good stuff. Thanks for all your thoughts. I need to get on to some brothers in Belarus right now.
Tell them to repent, or get the leaders to repent, eh?
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, let's
Thanks
keep
so much,
talking about these things. Really critical that we redefine discipleship for our people, and again, the modeling, the experience. That's what missional community is. It's an environment for modeling and experience to happen on mission.
Mm. Mm.
Another good definition of what is a missional community, or
Mm.
just that.
Good.
It's nothing more, nothing less. It's an opportunity for modeling experience to happen together on mission. So, okay.
Thanks,
Hey,
Todd.
we'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Todd.
Good.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.